Lesson 1, Unit 4, Needs Assessment. Projects also start by conducting a needs assessment. Assessments are a vital element of the project Pdme cycle. A good needs assessment helps the organization identify the pressing needs of a community, compare alternatives, and build a good case for a donor proposal. But most important, it provides information on which decisions will be made. Here's a good definition of what is needs assessment. It is a process to determine the needs or gaps between the current state and a desired state. The differences, when properly measured, helps identify the real need. A need assessment is more or less a research project. It is not necessarily needed to hold to the strict requirements of a scientific inquiry, but one should do everything possible to ensure that the information is accurate and free of bias. As a process, it is an approach to ask questions, compare answers, and make informed decisions about how to solve a problem and improve the conditions of a target population. In general, there are 4 types of needs that the organization can use to categorize its needs assessment process. These are normative need, perceived need, expressed need, and relative need. It's important to make these distinctions as the definition of need can vary from people to people and can even change over time. Normative need. By definition, the term normative means the existence of a standard or norm. That means that when we measure a need, we use the standard criterion established by custom, authority, or general consensus. The need is then measured against this standard in quantitative and qualitative conditions. One benefit of this approach is that it allows for the development of objective goals, but can be difficult if the standards are changing due to technology improvements, values, or knowledge. An example of a normative need in a water and sanitation project is the standard of liters of water used per person. This is a standard set up by the European Union. The average water used for drinking, cooking, and personal hygiene in any household is at least 15 liters per person per day. Anything less is then defined as not meeting the standard, and there is a cap. Perceived needs is defined in terms of what people think their needs are or feel their needs to be. This approach can be subjective and unstable to measure. Depending on the current conditions, the expectation of people can fluctuate, and they are susceptible to change. Data is usually collected through interviews, focus groups, or town meetings. An example of perceived need can be a community that feels they need 10 liters per person per day. This need expresses the perceptions of what the people feel they need. This need may include many factors that can be based on knowledge or information from other communities in their use of water, or the current practices on the use of water for hygiene. This need can change with each person interviewed. Express need. This type of need is based on actual demand from people that have sought help. Focus on situations where people actually translate a feeling into action, like asking for help. Major weakness is the assumption that all persons with need will seek appropriate help. An example of an expressed need is 30% of community members contact the local government or other organization expressing their need for better access to water. The expressed need may not represent the actual or real need from all in the community. Relative need is measured as the gap between the level of services existing in one community and those existing in similar communities. The analysis must take into account the differences in population and social behavior. This type of need has a concern on equity, especially when dealing with scarce resources that have to be shared amongst the different communities. An example of a relative need is people from community A have 15 liters of water per person per day, compared with community B that have 10 liters of water per person per day. Here's a good table that summarizes the 4 types of needs: the normative need, perceived need, expressed need, and the relative need. Conducting a needs assessment is a good approach to determine what are the real needs. Sometimes donors or organizations focus more on what to give rather than on what is needed. Obtaining information from the community about their needs helps the organization obtain the data that will guide the decision-making process by providing a solid justification for the decision. Here are some of the benefits of conducting a needs assessment. It helps identify the most pressing need, identifies the real goal of the project, it guides the decision-making process, and develops a cohesive story to obtain funding.